Welcome to Free Soul Awakening, the podcast that invites you to liberate yourself from conditioning, fear, and self-doubt. And remember that your soul was never meant to be caged. It was meant to be free. Hey guys, my name's Ashley. Welcome to Free Soul Awakening podcast. I am an evidential medium, and as always, at least for the past month, we have my co-host, Clyde.
Sup?
No, are we not staying
Just
with Clyde?
kidding. I'm Hannah.
Hannah, we love her so much. And back by popular demand, really by me, and the TikTok community.
Yes.
My therapist, Danae.
Woohoo!
Yay.
I think at this point you get like #1 guest appearance on the podcast now.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
I like
I
it.
think you are the most recurring guest.
It's been
This is
our
2.
their
That's
second time.
awesome. This is 2?
I get mentioned a
3
lot,
now.
I feel like.
Yes,
do.
I mentioned Danae a lot.
But all good
Oh, it's
things
like my
because you are
therapist.
such a positive influence.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always love hearing
Yeah,
that.
they are half responsible for the way I am. So,
Yeah.
for real though, for real.
I'll take it. I usually stack
Like-
it a bit higher in your favor because, my job's mostly just sitting there and making sense of it. But thank you. I do appreciate it.
We are talking about body dysmorphia, which I think I did a little thingy on TikTok and said, what do you guys want me to talk to my therapist about? And this was kind of the number
Oh.
one subject that people wanted me to talk about.
That is
With you.
super interesting.
Yeah, I found that interesting too. So, let's get into it. Let's talk about, what exactly is body dysmorphia and how do you differentiate that from just having insecurities as a human?
Absolutely. So, when we're talking about body dysmorphia, we're kind of referring to the specific label, which is in the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, or the DSM version 5, which is the version we currently use in the United States. It is body dysmorphic disorder, so BDD, and it is a reference to, in essence, an unhealthy obsession with an aspect of your appearance. So this is different than self-image problems in a couple of ways. It's also very different from something like dysphoria. So, gender dysphoria or feeling like you are in the wrong body is sort of kind of similar. It's still like that appearance doesn't match what you feel like it should. It doesn't reflect who you are. But of course, with gender dysphoria, we're speaking of something entirely different that isn't a clinically diagnosable. I mean, technically it is, because I can diagnose people with gender dysphoria so they can get help with that. But it's not like this terrible thing. It's its own little piece over there. But dysmorphia and dysphoria do sound startlingly similar, and they kind of relate to similar things, I suppose. So body dysmorphic disorder specifically is a continuous I guess obsession is the right word. I was doing some extra research on this because it's not necessarily something I've run into as often, but it's classified under the OCD disorders, so the obsessive compulsive disorders, which really are this broad spectrum of things that are trying to think of words is hard. But it's sort of this break from what reality presents us, right? So OCD, as it is this sort of ritualistic behavior that is intended to prevent something terrible. Usually there are different reasons, there are different impulses, there are different presentations, as there are for most things. But it's this ritualistic break from reality a bit. When you're kind of looking into body dysmorphic disorder, you're seeing a break from reality in how a person is perceiving themselves. Some common examples of this might be those gym guys you see who have like gigantic, jacked muscles, and they insist, and I do mean genuinely and persistently insist, that they are not muscular, they are not strong, and they need to work out more. Or somebody who is, this can kind of find its way into eating disorders. It can be comorbid with that kind of thing. And comorbid is just a word that means like co-occurring, that can happen together. You can find it in some aspects of eating disorders. If you are convinced that your body looks one way, but it actually doesn't, you're looking into that sort of obsessive compulsive belief system that reality is different from what you're experiencing. The point where it becomes concerning. It is normal, very normal, to have insecurities, to have things about yourself you don't like. Ideally, you take that and you use it as a way to change things about yourself, right? If you don't like your weight, not saying you have to go and lose 1,000 pounds, but maybe you do want to look into what's going to make you feel healthier, what's going to make you look healthier. If you don't like your hairstyle, cut it, dye it, do something, wear a wig. You can do anything you want with that. So a body insecurity is pretty normal. You usually have to work through those still, but, you know, societally, culturally, even like within family systems, there's a lot of pressure that you can feel about different parts of your appearance. And so, yeah, body insecurity is pretty normal. When it starts to cause substantial issues is when we're really looking at clinical concern. So one of the terms that I really like to use is the term clinically significant, because it's this idea that until something stops you from participating in your everyday life, it may or may not be a problem. Not saying it's not a problem, but it might be on the tolerable side. Like a reasonable body insecurity isn't clinically significant if you're looking at where the diagnosis for body dysmorphic disorder is. It's not impeding on your everyday life. It's not going to keep you from getting nutrients. You're not suffering from any particularly deeply held beliefs about yourself that are going to cause harm later on. It's okay. It's not great. You should work on that. But other than that, it's okay. Clinically significant starts to look like someone who will not stop exercising, even though what they're doing is starting to put their body at risk. Somebody who cannot stop dieting, even though what they're doing is putting their body at risk. Someone who is unhappy with a feature of their body and is trying to actively remove it from their body because they are uncomfortable with it, because it doesn't line up. You may hear, and I'm going to kind of stay away from it because there's no conclusive, really well documented evidence stuff on it, but you may hear about things like people cutting off their own limbs because they don't feel like they're theirs. That's the extreme side of body dysmorphic disorder, is people who feel like they shouldn't have eyes, people who feel like they shouldn't have arms and legs. And I don't want to comment too much on it because it isn't well studied. It is not very common, and it lands in a lot of really weird and interesting, to be fair, issues. It just does. That's all I've got for that. And because I don't want to, because I don't want people to be weirded out by it or anything, just there's some research, not a ton. It's odd, and a lot of medical ethical dilemmas. So if you're interested in that, that's a good thing to look into. It's not really what I like to look into, though, so I haven't done much research. But yeah, so one of the questions you sent me was at what point does concern about appearance become a clinical issue? And so that's what the clinically significant answer is for, is once it starts keeping you from enjoying or engaging in your life, then it's a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think a lot of people think of body dysmorphia as just being, in women or people with eating disorders. And no one really thinks about the gym bros. And I'm not saying people that don't go to the gym that it's a healthy habit for them.
Oh, yeah.
But there are people that just, especially bodybuilders, that they just want to get bigger. They're not big enough. And people don't look at that as body dysmorphia. They're like, oh yeah, he's just jacked and he wants to,
Mm-hmm.
get bigger. But it's like it's not big enough. They're never big
Yep.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah,
It can present in different ways. Our
concerning.
brains are
Yeah.
crazy. They can do a lot of things. And if you've got the wiring, or the environment or the socialization, the cultural aspects, whatever, it can get you fixated on some odd pieces of your appearance and kind of send you into an interesting and unfortunate little spiral.
No.
I don't think anyone has done any research on this because this is a recent cultural trend, but are you familiar at all with looks maxing?
No.
I
I don't think I've heard that
I
term.
guarantee your TikTok audience, at least some of them, will hear about this. Will know what it is. So it's this thing that popped up on the internet. I don't have all the like specificities about where or how it came, but it's this culture of men who are doing things to try to enhance their appearance to the top level, right? And at face value, that sounds like, okay, so you just want to like keep your skin clean and stuff, right? There's at least one famous guy who was an active participant in this looks maxing who was hitting his head with a hammer repeatedly, trying to cause the bones to like microfracture and grow back in a different way.
Oh my gosh.
No,
Ow.
I've not heard about that.
It's a fun dive. You should definitely go on it at some point. And I'm
Wow.
yeah, it's and it's so unfortunate because it is a very unhealthy group of individuals, people who are on steroids, who are like those gym bros who are obsessively working out. The one, I can't remember what his name is, but there is one kid I was listening to something about, and he had been on steroids since he was like 16. He is like, doing all of these things. He's talking about getting like these very experimental cosmetic surgeries to like widen his chin, or like how to get hunter eyes. That's another thing you can look up, is hunter eyes.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
What's that?
the ideal
So
way you want your eyes to look so that you're the most attractive.
Mhm. So if I'm thinking correctly, aren't hunter eyes like they're supposed to make you look more predatorily?
Something of the sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wild
So
place.
like they're like very narrow and very slanted.
Mhm.
Like as if you were like hunting an object, but that's what your face looks like permanently.
Mhm.
Oh, so, ew, no.
Huh?
So that's looks maxing is
Mhm.
becoming obsessed with this almost unobtainable
Mhm.
appearance?
Pretty much. I mean, that's how I would define it. I'm not doing
Okay.
research on this, but I do think that this is a really good example of how body dysmorphic disorder can appear in people. And it also kind of goes into one of the other questions you asked, which is, how does it come about? It is a multifaceted thing. Yeah, because the thing I was talking about was the basis, like where body dysmorphic disorder could come from, and it is what we consider like a true biopsychosocial mix. So that term is the combination of the words biology, or like biological, social, and psychological, meaning it can be like a combination of body things. That's why it's somewhat heritable. The body dysmorphic disorder, there's some research that defends that's got a little bit of heritability, meaning you can inherit it.
Interesting.
But
Like
there's
epigenetics?
but I think, especially when you look at like the things like the looks maxing and stuff, you can see that there is a very strong societal piece to body dysmorphic disorder. Obviously, like it's not just something societally that you can create. It has to come from societal, cultural elements. Familial elements can be something. Trauma can play a part, and then your own biology also plays a part. So, if you have this history of obsessive behavior, then it's not that strange to find that behavior kind of spanning multiple different areas of your life. Um, yeah, but the looks maxing thing in particular can kind of give us a hint into how intense societal expectations and pressure can be and how much it impacts our own obsessive thoughts and our own obsessive behaviors.
Yeah, especially in the social media age, because
Hmm.
I'm sure that doesn't help at all.
There is actually
Yeah.
research on that, and the answer is no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I just like, for example, like there are so many like influencers of like a masculine gender that are like, I want to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and look how big I am. You can be this big too. Just do everything I am. But what they don't tell you is they're also on steroids. And they've denied being on steroids, but they're on
Hmm.
steroids.
Yeah,
And
Oh, yeah.
which sorry to cut you off, Hannah, but it
oh,
just goes to show you we know the risks of steroids, and some people do take them responsibly. Like, I'm not here like be like, oh, steroids,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think there is a responsible way to
Mhm.
take them, but not that I know anything about steroids. However, I do think there are a lot of people that abuse them.
Yes.
And it's just another thing of, I know this could kill me. I know this could be really, really bad for my body, but I'm getting bigger. So
Mhm.
that's when it,
Hmm.
I guess, like you were saying today, becomes detrimental because you're not really taking care of your body the way you should.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's a thing to note too, like social media and social media influence, we talk about it a lot when it comes to women, right? Or AFAB individuals, people who are presenting as women. There's a huge discussion about how intense the pressure is for female presenting people to adhere to these strict expectations, right? These very traceable, very like clear cut, very blatant expectations of unhealthy body image. But as my partner has pointed out to me on multiple occasions, and as you can kind of see in this situation too, the discussion about how men are presented and what they're encouraging in each other, and the expectations they have to be muscular, to look a certain way, to have the face, to be, the attractive person, it's equally as intense. It's just a lot more subversive in kind of a shocking way, because it's not there isn't as much debate about it. Like, we see a woman promoting diet culture and being skinny, and we're all like, I've seen this one before, this makes sense. We see a guy who's showing off like workout stuff on Instagram or on TikTok, who's clearly juicing. Nobody's in the comments being like, dude, you're juicing. It's like, hey, look, you're working out, good job, dude, or whatever. If you want a really interesting dive on how far that can go, look up the Liver King, because that was
Yep.
also a dramatic and hilarious incident. And unfortunately, I think he is off the rails now.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate that this denial of when is enough going too far. And
Hmm.
it's so, as a healthcare professional, it's very hard to watch people go through something that is so incredibly detrimental to their health, and as you've said, is like, it's harming them, it's harming themselves. So in a way, it is a form of self-harm.
Hmm.
And it's so hard to watch someone go through this pattern of self-harm, being able to recognize it and trying to raise awareness to it without making the recipient of this concern feel like it is something to be embarrassed about, because it's not something to be embarrassed about. Sometimes it's not an overnight thing. It's something that can happen very slowly and very
Hmm.
incrementally until you don't even realize you are too far deep into it. And then it's hard to backpedal and try to retrain your psychology into a healthier thinking pattern.
Mm.
Yep.
It's so hard to watch someone, as somebody who has gone through like levels of abuse and gaslighting, watch somebody else go through abuse and gaslighting and self-harm and being like, no, this is fine. Like, I haven't died from it yet, so I'm probably okay, when it's like, no, 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 you are going down a very dark and deadly path, and it's a
Mhm.
very slippery slope.
Yeah, it's a really good comment to make too in reference to this, because part of like skipping a little around on the questions and stuff, but
No, no,
you know,
you're good.
just for funsies. When it comes to supporting people like that, it can be so hard, and you're a healthcare professional, you've totally seen it. I've absolutely experienced it with a great number of clients. I will make the joke, and I only mean this somewhat seriously, that sometimes I'll track something long before a client actually brings it to my attention. Like, I'll joke that I know if their relationship will make it past, like, the 3rd session, but that's not actually true. I don't actually do that. I do have an uncanny guess for it, but it's different. But, one of the really important pieces of being helpful. So, one of the hardest things and the most important things is how you are supportive to people who are traveling down their own path, right? And like you said, it's painful to watch someone make choices that you know are about to hurt them or that are perpetuating a space that they're in. And uh, obviously, there are nuances and degrees to the take I'm about to present. Like, there just are, but you can never push somebody to be ready to heal before they are. It's one of the first lessons that you're taught in therapy school, and one of the ones that I've had to learn repeatedly throughout many sessions with many people. If people aren't ready for the take you're about to present, they cannot, and I don't mean won't, I mean cannot accept that. And it pushes them into that defensiveness, into that space of potentially encouraging the behavior, not because you're trying to, but because they're scared now. And whatever it is they're doing is probably because they're already scared.
You can't force somebody that's
Yeah.
You
not
can't.
ready. And it's hard because you can tell them, like, you have an eating disorder, you are suffering from body dysmorphia. These are signs of body dysmorphia, because I am not a licensed diagnostician. I do know how to recognize signs and symptoms, and I can say this is a sign of this, this
Mhm.
is a symptom of this.
Yep.
But if someone is just not, when they still have their blinders on, they cannot
Mhm.
see anything more than what is in front of them. And until they are ready to take those blinders off, they will not see
Mhm.
from a different perspective.
No. And it gets complicated then as a helper, right? Like you and I kind
Yeah.
of have the protection of our professional lives to be
Yep.
able to be there and to support people in some fairly unique ways. Like I have all the patience in the world for clients. They can come to me and I can watch them self-destruct to a degree. I don't like watching it, but I will be there and I will be the one encouraging harm reduction. I will be there and I'll be the one being like, "Okay, I see how bad it is. I understand you can't stop yourself. I'm here to help you curb this. I don't need you to stop it. As long as you're alive at the end of the day, we're okay, and I'm going to be here for you no matter what." But a lot of that, partially, is because I have the professional label to sit behind. Personally, I obviously feel a great deal of compassion and empathy for people, and like I hate watching people suffer, but this is my job. I am allowed to have a professional box, and when I can't stand it anymore, I put the box down because I have to, because that's
Yeah.
how you do it as a professional. And it gets messier when it's someone you know and someone who is in your personal
Yeah.
life, because you aren't required to stand by them until they're ready. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes their path will drag you down it. And part of what is super important is being conscious of, I am on a path where I need to prioritize my own healing. When I have the space, the time, the resources, I can stand here and be here for you and wait for you and not push you away. But if you don't have that, you can't. And as we have both stated, you can't make someone change before they're ready. Sometimes your role is not to stand beside them until they are, but to
Mhm.
keep yourself ready for the moment they finally do end up needing your help.
Yeah, I think that
Obviously, highly nuanced. Sorry, go for it.
yeah. And so as like Danae said, like sometimes you have to put the box down.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's you have to decide where your boundaries end and when it is time to let go. Because at the end of the day, somebody else's decisions are not your responsibility.
So, since we were talking about signs, what are some subtle signs that someone might be struggling, but maybe not realize it?
So you're going to want to listen and you're going to want to watch. You're not going to necessarily hear it from them in terms like that are going to be blatant for you. Part of the reason I make the joke about therapists seeing through you is because we really are trained to listen very carefully to the way people choose their words and what they're focused on. A reason why some of our sessions are super casual is because I let the topics kind of rise to the surface as they will, and usually what's important comes up. If it doesn't, there's also usually a reason for that. So I find very little time is wasted when you're in therapy with a decent therapist. But you want to look and you want to listen. You're going to want to see, if you hear them talking about their body insecurities here and there, maybe note it, mark it away for later. If they start becoming like a little obsessive, if they're always asking, if they're checking a mirror every time before they go out, if they're like, oh, I don't look good enough to go out consistently, if it starts to become something that seems more than just a not fleeting, and not to put too light of a feeling on body insecurity, because it is a very real and very difficult thing to deal with. But it's not going to feel the same eventually. It may feel the same at the beginning when they're talking about, oh, I just hate how I look. Oh, I just need more muscles. Oh, I could just make my face look a little bit more attractive and we'll be fine. It's when it's going on for a while and you've seen some changes and they're not responding to it. Or they start saying things that are like somewhat factually untrue, like, oh, I'm so fat, as they're like starting to really slim down. You're going to want to listen for the places where it doesn't make sense outside of where they're experiencing it. And to pull from the conversation about having to be patient and waiting for people, you're going to want to be very cautious and careful about how you choose to engage with it with them. Um, Obsessive compulsive disorders in general are very much about, feeling safe in a place that doesn't feel safe. OCD and its rituals are there to create a sense of safety. Anxiety. The movie Inside Out 2 was the greatest boon I have ever gotten, because OCD is an anxiety disorder. Body dysmorphic disorder is a relation to anxiety disorders through the OCD stuff. Anxiety is there to keep you safe. And in this case, it may not be so much safe in the sense that like a ritualistic behavior would be, but safe in the sense that you don't like who you are. You feel something about how you appear. You are not presenting the way you are supposed to be presenting. And that anxiety, that obsessiveness, that need is representative of the actions that your brain is taking to kind of protect you from what may be hurting you.
So that's kind of if Hannah.
Yeah. I'm like, wow,
So,
okay, cool. This is fantastic.
so kind of when it's affecting the person's ability to, like, I guess, live normal. So if I
Yep.
was thinking, okay, do I have BDD or do I just have body insecurity? It's, am I obsessive about it? Is this affecting my life
Mm-hmm.
and my ability to just live? Am I just constantly thinking about this and how I can change my body? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And potentially, like, some of the other signs you might see is people going further and further to achieve the result they want as well, right? Like, so looks maxing, while not technically a thing that's been researched yet, includes people going further and further and further to achieve the idea of what they want to get, right? Going from steroids, going and like pills and stuff, to physically harming yourself or doing weird like muscle movements with your jaw, or like having cosmetic surgery done in unusual or potentially unsafe ways, or through sketchy people who are providing the surgeries, right? You'll see potentially an increase in that risk taking, which isn't quite the same as typical risk-taking behavior, because this isn't like adrenaline junkies. This is, I am desperately seeking relief from something haunting me, and it gets further away every time I think I'm getting closer.
Oh, that
Hmm.
makes so much
Yeah.
sense when you phrase it that way. I hadn't oh.
Do you
Yeah,
think I'm trying
yeah.
to figure out how to word this. Like, do you think there's an underlying issue that's not really even related to BDD in a way? Like some trauma that they're kind of, I don't,
Sometimes. I,
yeah.
it's a so like the complex origins of it kind of prevent us from having really easy A B answers for this. Some disorders are pretty easy. ADHD is ironically very easy to point to where the problem is coming from. It's a very difficult thing to treat, but it's coming from a very specific problem. The lack of dopamine in one's brain.
Oh.
That's literally the problem. That's it. That's the only problem.
Yeah, that is my problem.
But
Until I get
me
bored.
too. But it's the only problem, right? So it's a very easy, like, this causes this. And then we get into all of that. With something like body dysmorphic disorder, you're not looking at a simple A to B answer. So the answer can be, sure, sometimes trauma is what prompts the obsessive compulsive behavior, right? Trauma, safety, compulsion, anxiety, they all flow into this kind of safety oriented thinking. Most of the time, our brain is just looking out for us. It may be doing it poorly or be doing it completely wrong. I mean, even acts of self-harm are usually meant to protect your brain from something different that's happening rather
Mm-hmm.
than an intentional act of destruction. So you're looking at behavior oriented around safety. It could be social safety, it could be physical safety, it could be emotional safety, it could be cultural, societal positioning and that kind of safety. Like, there is, the answer is kind of yes and no at the same time.
I figured as such. I was just curious as like if there's something else, like, so are there any treatments for BDD?
There is treatment. There is no one specific treatment. So kind of like my thing about ADHD comes from one specific place and it has like a reasonably specific origin of symptoms. You have a traditionally understood treatment plan, or at least like the things that work for most people.
Sorry.
I love it. Um, just either you take something that decreases the need for dopamine in your system, you take something that increases the dopamine in your system, or you find behavioral ways to work around the deficit. So it's a pretty ABC thing. Obviously, in practice, these things are messy and don't take this as it's easy to treat ADHD because I have it. It's not.
Yep.
But the way you think of it, the framework is pretty simple. When it comes to something with a more complex origin, now you're dealing with things that can't have A, B, C answers because they do not have the same place of origin. So traditionally, what treatment looks like for body dysmorphic disorder is largely talk therapy and sometimes anxiety medication, trying to help your nervous system re-regulate and, figure out what's gone wrong that your brain is interpreting as dangerous that may or may not actually be such. Um, there are cases of people who, quote, fully recover. There are people who struggle with it for a long time. There are people who don't recover from it. Um, it's management at that point. And obviously, as with any kind of behavior that is taken to protect oneself that escalates into negative places, there are levels where hospitalization is necessary, where more intensive treatment is necessary. Talk therapy is a label for a lot of different methodologies. So there is an inpatient kind of methodology. There is partial, there's intensive outpatient, there's traditional outpatient, there's a large variety of different ways you can get talk therapy. And the more you are in a space where you are making choices that will endanger your life, the more medical professionals will kind of make sure that you are surrounded by medical facilities and hopefully the treatment options that you need.
Yeah, that makes sense. It
I don't know.
seems, difficult.
It is.
Like a
I
really,
mean, it's not. I didn't do a lot of research into like whether or not people like what the recovery rates are or anything,
yeah.
but it's kind of a thing that flows with the rest of the logic of what it is. These things are hard to treat. It doesn't mean that they will take forever. It doesn't mean that they are going to last forever. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be solved quickly either. It means that at your pace, with whatever you're dealing with, however tangled it is, you're going to have to walk through it. Avoiding it is definitely an option, but it puts you in a lot of danger. And usually by the point where you're being forced into a confrontation or you've come to the conclusion yourself, you can't avoid it anymore. A lot of fear-based and anxiety-based things revolve around the thing you're not looking at. It's the thing you're avoiding with every last breath, every scramble of your body. And that is what kind of defines where it is. And when you sit and actually look at it, it can be exactly as scary as you thought it was. It isn't always, to be fair. A lot of times we're overdoing it in our head with the dark and gloomies. Sometimes it is actually
The
that
gloomies.
scary. But
Yeah.
the ultimate thing there is that once you've seen it, it is really hard to ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is to
Yeah.
keep looking at it and to let yourself take it at your own pace. Like, there is nothing I could have done to help any hypothetical clients get over any hypothetical girlfriends any hypothetically faster whatsoever. Because that was going to happen exactly as it happened.
Well, Danae, this has been a great episode.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming on. We'll obviously have you back
Oh, yes.
because the people love you.
The people being me.
And
me.
Ashley.
Where we go.
I like you guys
Oh.
too. This is fun.
Does someone want to pull a card? Wow, you're all ready.
Am as worthy of my dreams as anyone else.
Oh,
That is a good one. I like it.
perfect.
It's a really cute
That was
book.
perfect.